I was asked to talk a little bit about the first guitar that I ever had, the first guitar that I ever played. And it's something that always sticks with guitar players. It's like talking about your first love. So I can actually do better than talk about it. I can actually show you, because this is the first guitar that I ever played. Or it's, I should actually say, it's part of the, only the neck has survived the ravages of time. There's actually a little story behind this, and whenever I tell this story, nobody ever believes me, but it is absolutely true. A friend of my dad's, Ernie, Uncle Ernie, as he was known, because in where I come from and in the culture that I was brought up in, we always call our parents' friends uncle or auntie. We never call them by their first name. It's considered very disrespectful. So my Uncle Ernie, not really my uncle, but Uncle Ernie went to Australia from the UK, and this was in the late 50s. And he stayed there for a while. He was working as an engineer on roads, as my dad did. And he came back from Australia. He didn't stay out there. But on his way back, he got a job in Zambia, in Africa, and building a bridge out there. So when he came back with two new things that he didn't leave with. He came back with an Australian guitar. This was a Maton, and an African wife, my Aunt Jessie. So my mum and dad had a party to welcome them back, or to welcome Ernie back, and to welcome Aunt Jessie into the family, as it were. And the thing about Aunt Jessie was she was actually a princess of a tribe, and so she was actually a princess. So I remember they had this party, and I was sitting on Aunt Jessie's knee. 1960, I'd have been 4 years old, and they handed me this guitar because I had a little ukulele. So I can actually say, with all honesty and with a great deal of pride, that the first time I played a guitar was sitting on an African princess's knee. Now, not many people can say that. So this was the guitar. Yeah, Maton. Now these guitars have become better known around the world in recent years because of their most famous exponent, endorsee, Tommy Emmanuel. But so a lot of people think they're new, but not at all. This was made in the 1950s. I've got photographs of it when it was all in one piece. It was like a bit like a Gibson L5 Deluxe. Didn't have a cutaway. It was an archtop guitar, but it was actually very, very nice guitar. But it was actually huge for me as a little kid trying to play this. And then Uncle Ernie and Auntie Jessie then went off somewhere else where he was working, building another bridge or some roads in another exotic place somewhere in the world. And they were famous for their parties. They used to have incredibly wild parties around their house. And Uncle Ernie was very fond of whiskey, and so was Auntie Jessie, actually. And he was playing, when he had a few drinks, he used to pick up the guitar and sing for everybody. And unfortunately, now this is a lesson to all guitar players as well, he did one of the things you never ever do with a guitar. He put it down on a chair, on a seat, you see. Yes, Auntie Jessie, who was not a small lady, sat on it, and this is all that's left. And I was playing a concert in England about 10-15 years ago, and somebody turned up at the stage door with a black bin bag and said, "Oh, this is from your Uncle Ernie and Auntie Jessie. It's your guitar." And there was this and just a few little sticks, but that's all it was. Once I got this bug, my dad bought me a guitar in Petticoat Lane in the East End of London for £1 guinea, which was, that's in our old money. £1, British pound, is, it was £1 and 1 shilling, or £1 and 5 pence now. So those of you that aren't from the UK won't understand any of this. Anyway, it was very, very cheap. They got this guitar, and it was made in Russia. And the strings are about that far away from the fretboard, and I used to play this. It actually used to make my fingers bleed when I was playing, but I just became totally hooked on it. And it's quite amazing that I actually carried on playing guitar, because the first few guitars I had were so awful, were so terrible. And I've been fortunate over the years now to play some of the best guitars in the world, and to own some of the best guitars in the world, and also to design my own guitars, which is an absolutely fantastic thing to do. And I'm often asked, when was the golden age of guitar manufacture? Because a lot of people think, well, you know, you had the Lloyd Law guitars in the 1930s and 20s, and I look at it and I say, yeah, there were some great guitars. I actually think we are now living in the golden era of guitar manufacture, of guitar builders. We have so many fantastic guitar builders, independent builders, and we have companies, factories around the world that produce great guitars too. A lot of them fairly inexpensive as well. It was, for me, when I was starting to play, to have a guitar that was really playable, was a good guitar, was certainly impossible for my parents to have bought me a good guitar. So for the first 10, 15 years I played guitar, I played on some terrible old things. So anyway, that's the little story about my first guitar and the African Princess.